everyone, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Allison.
And this is Nerd of the Week, a randomly generated fandom podcast.
There it is.
Yeah, it is. Generator, would you like to remind the kind listeners what the word is this week?
The word of the week is hide.
I didn't actually Google the definition this time, so I didn't have it up. I'm slacking.
So hopefully whatever I say is actually right.
I have now Googled it.
So, hide. I think there are at least two definitions that I will tell you about.
Okay.
The first one is to conceal something or someone from view or detection.
Okay.
And another is the skin of an animal, particularly like a leather or a suede.
Wow, fancy.
Oh, thank you. Getting too specific. I feel like that's going to come back to bite me.
Google's kind of got more broad strokes on this one specifically.
Sometimes it is really specific, though.
Oh, yeah, it just has like very niche nitpick things. This one, it's a verb, to put or keep out of sight, conceal from the view or notice of others.
I said conceal.
You did. Very close. I think you know the mind of the Google.
We are becoming one.
Google definitions. And then the other one is noun, a camouflaged shelter used to get close view of wildlife. That's not what I was expecting it to say, but hide is also true. Okay. Then you have to scroll down to hide with a little like subscript too. And that one's the skin of an animal, especially when tanned and dressed.
So like made into leather?
Yeah.
I was kind of right.
Yeah. Though the use in a sentence is, I'm sorry I called you a pig. My hide's thick enough. It doesn't bother me.
Their sentences are so off the wall.
I don't understand. Apparently, it's also a former measure of unit of land, anywhere between 60 and 120 acres.
Wow, that's a lot.
Specifically used in England.
Why? Because it's so easy to hide on it?
I don't know.
We'll never find them in this hide.
This hide of land. Is anywhere from 60 to 120 acres of land.
That's literally
so much
double
area.
The amount.
Right?
Yeah.
So much space.
Oh my goodness. Oh, what a peasant could do on a hide of land in the old times.
What a peasant could do on a hide of land now. We're doing great here.
Oh no. That was very funny to me for some reason. Okay. Well, now that we are thoroughly entertained.
Are you not entertained?
Come to my hide of land and be entertained for days. Come, peasants, come one and all.
It's me. I'm the peasant. I've come to your hide of land to listen to your story and regale me the tale of the media you brought for hide.
Sit back, dear peasant, and let me tell you of the grand tale that has been woven throughout time and space. Okay. So this was inspired by when I went absolutely bananas watching The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings trilogies
All right.
in the months of November and December.
Just went rabid.
They were on Amazon Prime, and I discovered that. And it was an unexpected, I was going to say it was an unexpected journey. Wink. But it was an unexpected great find on Amazon Prime. And I literally every weekend watched all of these movies. It wasn't like all of them every single day, but like I'd watch one night and then the next and just like keep going through the double trilogies for those entire 2 months. My memory of the movies is probably not as good as you'd think it would be for literally having watched them so often. But I'm going to try my best.
Are we doing all of the movies, or are we just picking
No.
one? Okay.
No, as you may recall from last episode,
Yep.
I did kind of hint like, ooh, Allison's going to do a series, a little mini series here on the podcast. So for Hyde, we're just focusing on the first Lord of the Rings book/movie. I also started rereading the books. So that's also going to screw with my memory of the movies.
Okay. I was going to ask, because the way you phrased it made it seem like you hadn't seen these before. Was this the first time you've watched the movies? I didn't think so. Okay.
I have seen them.
Okay.
It was a bit ago, though.
It's been a minute, but okay.
Yeah.
I thought you had seen them before.
Yeah, and then I did read the books also, I think in high school. So again, been a minute since then.
Right.
But when I went down to visit my parents, I collected my books from my bookshelf. My mother still claims it's my bookshelf, even though it's in her house. So I brought them back, and now I have them in my possession again. So yeah, I've just had Hobbit on the mind for months at this point. But anyway, as I was saying, probably not as good a recollection as you might expect. And the first book/movie is The Fellowship of the Rings.
Okay.
The book, I'm now realizing I didn't remember when I was watching the movies. Very, very, very different than the movie. So I think I'm going to just try and focus on movie, but I might put little interjections of my thoughts about the book as well. So I'll just start off. It starts off with a old hobbit named Bilbo Baggins, he was actually the main character of The Hobbit, but he's now just a side character in The Lord of the Rings. So he is in his hobbit hole in Hobbiton, and it's called Bag End because he's Baggins. So cute. And he has a little nephew whose name is Frodo, who lives with him. And in The Hobbit, Bilbo had come across a magic ring in a troll cave, and he had granted him the power of invisibility, and through that great power, he was able to help the dwarves. This is a whole big thing that I'll get into some other time, I'm sure. But anyway, he has this magic ring. There's also a wizard, Gandalf, who knows he has the ring, was a bit suspicious of the ring, but wasn't quite sure why he was suspicious of the ring for the longest time. But there are dark forces at work, and he's beginning to suspect that this ring that Bilbo has is the one ring to rule them all, meaning that back at the beginning of times, when all of the rings of power were cast and given to the elves, the men, and the dwarves, and also to the evil of Mordor, this was the one evil ring of Mordor that was melded in the fires of Mount Doom, and it must be destroyed. Basically, evil guy Sauron is coming back, and he needs the ring to gain his full power. It's the good guy's job to make sure that he doesn't get it and that it's destroyed.
That's a pretty accurate summary of Lord of the Rings.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, there we go. End of the episode.
Done. Got it. Got it in one.
So, going back to Bilbo, it's his 111th, what did they call it? 11d10? They say something silly about it.
I think,
111th birthday. He's had this grand party planned for all of the hobbits in the Shire, and everyone's going to show up, and Gandalf finally comes. He's been away from the Shire for so long, but he comes to Bilbo's birthday to say hello to his old friend. And Bilbo, after his birthday, has decided that he's going to one last time use the ring to magically disappear. So he does. He makes this grand speech, and he's kind of semi-insults all of the hobbits who are there. He's like, I don't know half of you as much as I'd like, and I like half of you as much as I should. And they don't know what to think about that. And then he says, and now I really must be going. And he puts the ring on, he turns invisible, and he makes his way back up to Bag End so he can get his little suitcase, not a suitcase, like a backpack, and travel away. And that's his intention. He doesn't want to be in the Shire anymore. From his travels as a young hobbit, he grew weary of the everyday life of the Shire, and he wants to leave. He wants to go see his friends, the elves, again at Rivendell, which is the elf kingdom. So that's his big plan. Well, Gandalf is suspicious of what's going to happen to the ring, so he has surmised where Bilbo has gone after he turns invisible, follows him back up to Bag End, kind of stops him on his way out and hey, where's that ring of yours? And Bilbo's like, oh, it's on the mantle in an envelope left for Frodo. Frodo's inheriting everything in Bag End. And then Gandalf like looks at the mantelpiece. It's not there. And Bilbo's like, oh, so it looks like it's still in my pocket. And he has this like really, really hard time letting go of the ring, basically. And until Gandalf basically like, he doesn't like do any sort of magic on him, but he like gets all serious and commanding essentially, and basically makes him drop the ring. So he does. And then Bilbo like a weight is lifted off his shoulder basically as he gives up the ring, and he's able to leave and make his way to Rivendell. He is now no longer important in the story.
Okay.
Frodo comes back up from the party, finds the ring on the ground, and Gandalf says, like, you have to keep the secret. You have to keep it safe. And so they put it in a little envelope, and Frodo just, like, puts it in a little chest, and there it is. And Gandalf says, I have urgent business to attend to. I must go, but keep it safe. Keep it secret. And that's,
keep it secret. Keep
that's
it safe.
the whole thing. Yeah, keep it secret. Keep it safe. So Gandalf, he like goes running away out of the Shire. He goes to some ancient library and is going through all these books and whatnot until he finds like the the legend, I guess, of the ring.
Yeah.
And it says like, you must put it in fire and you shall see its dark writings. It's the one ring, blah, blah, blah. So he goes on back to the Shire. He surprises Frodo coming back so soon. He's like, is it secret? Is it safe? And Frodo says, yeah, it's right here. Here you go. So Gandalf like throws the ring into the fire, and Frodo's like, wait, what? You can't do this. Gandalf like picks it back up out of the fire with some little tongue pincher kind of things and makes Frodo take it in his hand. And Frodo's like, no, it'll burn me. Gandalf's like, oh, no, don't worry. It's quite cool, which it is, because this ring came from the fires of Mount Doom. Like, no regular chimney fire is going to damage this thing. So Frodo's like holding it, and Gandalf is like, what do you see? Because it's really just like this smooth gold ring. But because of the heat, finally like little dark runes appear on it. And Frodo says, wait, there's writing. And this confirms everything that Gandalf had feared, that this is in fact the one ring to rule them all, the one evil ring. And Gandalf says, we can't let the enemy get it. It has to be kept safe and out of hands, and you have to be the one who takes it somewhere. And Frodo's like, but wait, can't we just hide it here in the Shire? Hence hide. Why I brought this for our current word. And Gandalf says, no, it might be safe for a while, but already the Dark Riders are out flying. So there are these like messengers of Sauron who come out. They've been summoned back from the dead. One of them, the most powerful one, is the Witch King of Egmar, and we'll talk about him later. But basically, they almost look like Dementors, kind of, but they're not quite the same thing. They're just like these dark, ghostly riders, and they can't really see, but they can smell, and they can also sense if the ring is on Frodo's finger, but they can't sense it quite as well when it's just in his pocket. So Gandalf warns him that he's not supposed to use the ring because it will attract their attention, and Frodo is so afraid. He doesn't want to do this all alone. Luckily, Gandalf says that he'll come with him, don't worry. However, then there's rustling in the bushes outside. Gandalf uses his little stick to like stab down through the window. It's not like gonna hurt anything, but there's this little like kind of scream, and it is Samwise Gamgee, who is Frodo's gardener, but also his friend. They're best buds.
Sean Astin, the best ever.
Yes. As we go through here, you'll soon find that Sam is the wisest of all. But anyway, since he heard everything, and he's like, don't turn me into a frog or nothing, Mr. Gandalf. Gandalf says, oh no, I have a much better purpose for you. Basically, he says, you gotta come along, you're gonna keep Frodo safe with me. So both little hobbits get to go along with Gandalf, and they're scampering on through the woods. Gandalf like takes him to the edge of the forest, and then he has to go off and like do his own urgent business. He has to go talk to Saruman. I hate that his name is Saruman, and then there's Sauron, and it's like, couldn't you have picked slightly different names that didn't start with the saw kind of sound?
Well, I understand and I agree, and that caused massive confusion for me. What I will say is Tolkien is very good about giving creatures and people names that give you basically like everything you need to know about them in the name. Like
That's true.
So like Sauron, Saruman, you're like, these are probably both bad people.
Yeah. I mean, definitely it had good reason. And also Tolkien like completely created languages. So like linguistically, I think he knew what he was doing there.
Yeah.
And
1000%.
like Elvish is a thing that can be learned, and like it has grammatic structure, and it's not just like a one-to-one translation kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he is a master of literary writing.
Yeah.
But it is still just one little thing that irks me, unfortunately.
No, I get it. And I understand completely.
So anyway, Gandalf has to go off and talk to Sauron because Saruman. Oh my god.
Saruman. That's why I always say his name the way I do. It's Saruman.
Because Saruman is the head of the wizard order. So Gandalf like kind of looks to him for help, essentially. He's supposed to be like the shining light of the wizards, of which there are only 5. Again, we'll kind of get into that some other time, if and when I talk about The Hobbit. But, meh. So anyway, the 2 hobbits, Sam and Frodo, are on their own, going through the woods. They're going through, actually, they come up to like a farm, and it's like on the edge of the Shire, and Sam is like, "This is the furthest I will have ever been from home, Mr. Frodo." And just then there's like screaming from the farmer, and there's dogs barking, and they are concerned that they're going to be caught by this farmer before their journey has even started. And then out of the corn bushels pop 2 other hobbits who are Merry and Pippin. Woo. And they're silly comic relief characters, basically.
Chaos Express.
Yes. Which in the book, for like the first quarter of it, Merry is much more an important character and kind of painted to be the wisest of the hobbits at that time. And he like knows how to get them through the Shire and like through the dark wood. Like he's well traveled. Completely different character in the book than in the movie. Yeah. But whatever. I understand what they did for the movie, but
they did Merry dirty.
Yeah. He could have been so cool. But anyway, so these 2, they now know about the mission as well because they've run into Frodo and Sam. And as they were tumbling down a hill, the Dark Rider came upon them and they had to hide in the bushes. During that time, like the ring was calling out to Frodo, being like, "Hey, I need you to put me on," except it says that all in black speech, basically. So it's just like weird whispering in the background. Frodo luckily does not put it on because Sam notices what's happening and like pulls his hand away. He's like, "Mr. Frodo, no, you can't." So luckily the Black Rider goes away.
The rest of the movie.
Exactly. Mr. Frodo, no.
Stop it, Mr. Frodo.
Mr. Frodo, what are you doing? Sam is a good boy.
I love him so much.
So anyway, all the hobbits are going. And finally, they make it to a town called Bree, where Gandalf was supposed to be meeting them. Once they get to the inn called the Prancing Pony, Gandalf, unfortunately, is not there. However, they meet a new friend there. All of the hobbits are like telling stories, like talking with the townspeople, and accidentally something happens where Frodo like falls over and the ring like falls onto his hand and he turns invisible. It creates this huge kerfuffle.
That scene forever. Like, I know it's a cursed object and is trying to be worn, but God, that scene drove me up a wall as a kid. I was like, how?
Like, he just raises his hand up, literally, I think to grab the ring is what it's supposed to be, but like, it just so perfectly slips onto his finger. Like, what?
Like, I'm willing to suspend my disbelief for wizards and dragons and like the Nazgul things, but the ring falling
or like
perfectly,
having the ring actually like kind of communicate with Frodo and try and command his will, but like,
and even making Frodo invisible, but just it falling perfectly on his finger. I will not stand for it.
This is where we draw the line. So he kind of makes a fool of himself basically by turning invisible. He realizes that this is not good that he's done this, and of course because of Gandalf's warning not to use the ring. So he like crawls behind a pillar before he takes it off so no one really sees what's happened to him. However, one person has seen what's happened to him.
Oh.
Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
It is Strider, the Ranger.
Oh, Viggo Mortensen, my first love.
Yes, Viggo Mortensen. So Strider is kind of the ranger name he goes by. However, he is actually Aragorn, the king, the long descendant of who's his face?
Yeah.
I can't remember what the first king's name is. Basically, back in the day, the reason that Sauron lost his ring to begin with is because the King of Men cut off his hand and was about to put the ring in the fires of Mount Doom, but before he did, the ring took over his soul and turned him evil, basically. Like, the Kingdom of Men, like, fell into disrepair, basically. We're now in the Age of Elves, and Sauron wants to bring about the Age of Orcs. Anyway, somehow down the line, we now come to Aragorn as the rightful ruler and heir to the throne of men, basically. So he's kind of been like in disguise this whole time as Strider the Ranger, but he's like now he's coming to terms basically with the whole series of like he's going to be king and like he has to be the shining light for the good of the world basically. But he's a really kind person and I think he is a good king. He has good kingly qualities, I think.
He's a good leader. He leads by doing.
And like he's not afraid to do the hard parts of things as well. I feel like, at least in the non-extended editions of The Lord of the Rings, I feel like we don't see as much of his character arc, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because it's just kind of like, here he is. He's going to be king. And then like for the rest of the time, it's just like, yep, he fights. Good job.
I remember when I watched it the first time and it wasn't the extended edition and I'm like, what? All of a sudden we're just now king. I'm confused.
Yeah, but I'm sure in the extended edition, which I don't actually remember if I have seen all of the extended edition or if I've fallen asleep before I've seen the end of them all. That was a long, long time ago.
And that is a journey of just time to watch.
Yeah. I do remember there being more scenes like, of him. So viewer be warned, watch the extended edition if you want the whole lowdown on Aragorn. He's seen what has happened to Frodo and also saw him kind of rematerialize behind the pillar. This was actually like the first scene that Viggo Mortensen filmed. I was watching a little behind the scenes on this.
Okay.
So he like wasn't like quite sure about the character yet and how he was going to play him. He was also like the most last minute casting. It was like 2 weeks before filming started. They actually like found him as their true Aragorn. They'd hired someone else beforehand, but it was like not working. So this was the first scene that he filmed, and they like looking back on it, Peter Jackson says like, yeah, I just don't feel like he really got in the character there. He's like a little too like gruff and commanding to Frodo, which he kind of is. He like forces him up the stairs and like doesn't tell him who he is.
Yeah.
And it's just a little like, oh, why should Frodo trust you kind of thing.
Right.
But he does convince the hobbits to trust him of like, hey, I'm on the side of good. I'm a friend of Gandalf and I'm going to protect you. You're going to stay in my room tonight since Frodo used the ring and now the Nazgul, which are the Black Riders, they know where you are, which there's this fun kind of cut back and forth scene of like the hobbits sleeping peacefully in beds.
Yeah.
And then the Nazgul like sneaking up on the beds and then they're stabbing into it. And the hobbits then wake up in different beds because they're in Aragorn's room.
Yeah, that was so spooky to watch the first time.
Yeah. It's very spooky. The Nazgul themselves are just creepy guys.
Creepy, yeah.
Like, very good portrayal. They did a good job with that. So the hobbits are saved, and they're going to go on with Strider now. He's going to take them to Rivendell, which is the, again, realm of some of the elves. There are other elves. But to get there, they have to travel through the forests and blah, blah, blah. Lots of traveling. A lot of people don't like these movies because of all the travel.
There's a lot of walking in these movies.
Yeah. But it's about the journey.
One does not simply walk into Mordor. You know what? You do.
So anyway.
And also, I'm going to put the eagle commentary, because they're always like, wait, they had giant flying eagles and they could have just used them. If they had taken the flying eagles, they would have been seen and the whole thing would have been ruined. Like, you can't hide giant flying eagles.
There's not that many eagles.
Right.
They would have been picked off one by one by the Nazgul.
1,000%. Or like the orc the orcs had catapults. Like, these eagles would have been murdered. Like, no, that was always one that bugged me. I was like, no, it makes sense that they walked because that's harder to be found.
Right. They're hiding.
Right.
One pivotal kind of plot altering part of this is on this one mountain called Weathertop, where they had been staying for the night. It was like an old fortress that wasn't used anymore. But the Nazgul did find them there. Even though Frodo hadn't been using the ring, he was being a good boy. But the Nazgul still found them. And there's this big fight, and Frodo gets stabbed in the shoulder with like this poison Morgul blade. Morgul meaning from Mordor. And it like kind of slowly starts to poison him. Even like it's not that bad of a wound, but like the whole thing is just like creeping away into his whole body and soul, basically. And so they're trying to do their best they can to move on, but Frodo is like quickly fading. Luckily, the elf girl whose name has just escaped me,
Arwen,
yes. Arwen.
Arwen.
There we go.
Yep.
Yeah. So Arwen has been sent to find them, and she does, and she's on a fast horse, thank goodness. There's also this really sweet scene right here where she's talking with Aragorn, and like you immediately understand that like, oh yeah, they're a couple, and they're so cute together. Like, it's not even like a romantic scene, it's just them being like, hey, thanks for coming, you're awesome, I'll see you soon,
miss you, love you, bye.
Oh yes. Oh, this is so good. I wish there were more scenes like that.
I know.
Anyway, so it's agreed that Arwen, since she's on the fast horse, is going to take Frodo to Rivendell, and then all of the other hobbits and Strider are going to follow behind. So the Nazgul, they like quickly pick up on this whole plot somehow, and like they're on fast horses too, and they come like bolting out of the woods after her, and her horse like has to do these fun maneuvers, and then they get to this river that's in front of Rivendell, and the Black Riders are like stopped by the river for a second, but then she like she stupidly shouts like a taunt at them, like, if you want him, you have to get him, except it's more eloquent than that because she's an elf.
Right.
And so they kind of like come into the water a little bit on their horses, but then she does some sort of elf spell that like asks the water to help her, basically. And so then these like water horses kind of come out of the water and trample down the Nazgul, so they all like get rushed downstream. So safe for now. Frodo gets to go to Rivendell, gets healed by the elves. Hooray! Anyway, so he finally wakes up. It's been a few days. Everyone's there. Gandalf is there, finally. And then there's this big meeting where, like, all of the different races have come. They've sent, like, representatives. So Aragorn is there to represent some of the men, I guess. But then there's also Boromir, who's there to represent other of the men, because he's the son of the custodian of the kingdom. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then there's Gimli the dwarf, Legolas the elf, and then the four hobbits and Gandalf.
Yes.
Okay, and then King Elrond. King? Lord?
King Elrond? Lord Elrond? It's Lord. I think it's Lord.
Lord Elrond, yeah. He's like the head of the Rivendell elves and the father of Arwen. He's a cool guy. I like him a lot.
Who's he played by? I love his actor. Hugo Weaving.
Yes. Yeah. He's really good. When I was little and saw these movies, he has like a very stern look to him. Yeah. And I like in the back of my head thought he was a bad guy.
1,000%. And I think that's just how Hugo Weaving's face is. He just looks more aggressive than he is.
Yeah. But like the character himself, he's actually real sweet. And as I said, he's Arwen's father. And he doesn't want his little girl to like be harmed in any way. Like he's just like hardcore dad.
Yeah.
He wants to be a good dad, which I think is so cute too. So anyway, he's there overseeing this council, and all the races are saying well, obviously we need to get rid of this ring. Who's gonna take it though? And Boromir's like, we shouldn't take it to be destroyed. We should use it. We should use it against the enemy. And Legolas is like, we can't do that. That's going to get us all killed. You'll be immediately converted to the dark side. And Boromir's like, no, my family needs to be able to rule because our kingdom is crumbling. And then at this point, Legolas reveals that Aragorn is the true king. Mm-hmm. He's not just this random ranger.
Not some rando who walked in on the party.
Yeah. He's meant to be there. Boromir immediately doesn't like that he's being told no, essentially. Mm-hmm. But we also learn his father, this is kind of again later in the books when we meet his father. His father is not a good dad. He doesn't, he wants glory for himself, not for his sons, basically. Right. So really it's how can his sons best serve his purposes rather than what's best for the people. Yeah. Anyway, so I guess Frodo comes to this realization, those people can't do it. So he kind of in the back volunteers, I will take the ring to Mordor. Mm-hmm. And they're all like, what? You can't do it.
You're a hobbit.
But Gandalf says, there's surprising strength in the hobbits, and I think you should let him do it. And so everyone says, okay, fine. If Gandalf likes it, we do too. And so everyone says, well, I'll be by your side. You will have my sword, and my axe, and my bow. Mm-hmm. And so then this is how they form the Fellowship. Ooh. Yay! They're going along. They have these fun little canoes that the elves give them. Mm-hmm. We also all this time have been having cutbacks to what the enemy is doing. So first off, for a while when we were missing Gandalf, he'd been being beat up by Saruman, mm-hmm. who had been basically converted to the dark side by Sauron and has made his beautiful country estate into this terrible desert wasteland. He's cut down all the trees and he's basically making it an orc breeding ground. And so we see all this huge army of orcs being birthed out of the ground, and it's so yucky. They're all slimy and sticky. And they're all getting prepared, and there's these huge fires for bellows, and they're making all these weapons and getting tough. And so we just see them kind of periodically sprinting around the countryside on their way to various devious deeds, mm-hmm. essentially. Okay, so they've left Rivendell. Yep. They're going all through the mountains. Okay. And it's this huge snowstorm.
Oh, right.
Sauron's kind of realized what's going on because Gandalf was able to escape thanks to the eagles. Mm-hmm. The eagles took him to Rivendell. Mm-hmm. But basically, they were trying to avoid the orcs by going over the mountain pass. And it's 8 feet of snow, and the hobbits can't even stand above the snow.
Right.
And Gandalf is we have to turn back. And then things get way worse because Saruman is putting a spell on the weather to make there be a horrible blizzard.
And isn't there a big rock monster or something that shows up?
No, that's in the Hobbit.
That's in the Hobbit. Never mind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it might be the same pass though that they're crossing over.
Probably.
But they decide, Gandalf says the ring bearer should be the one who chooses if we push forward or pick a different way. And Frodo's had enough of the snow, I guess, because he says, no, we'll pick a different way. And Gimli, the dwarf, had volunteered up before that they cut through the mines of Moria, right. which is a dwarf mine. Mm-hmm. And Frodo's like, we'll go through the mines. Now, Gandalf, he did not want to do that mm-hmm. because...
trauma.
Yeah, I guess, trauma. He knows there's something there that's not good. Mm-hmm. And he's scared of it, but he doesn't quite know what it is. Mm-hmm. Which I think if Gandalf is scared of something, you best beware of it.
Yeah, right. If Gandalf doesn't want to go into a room, there's probably a good reason.
Yeah. So anyway, they turn back and they find the entrance to the door. It's a sealed door and it has this riddle on it. Mm-hmm. And it says speak, friend, and enter. Mm-hmm. And Gandalf is it's a password. And so he sits there saying various things in dwarfish and elvish at the door. Uh-huh. And
the original
he's not
door
getting
puzzle
in.
that never opens.
Exactly. And everyone's just like, Gandalf, why can't you come up with the password? They're not saying that out loud, but you know they're thinking it.
Right.
And finally, Frodo, he puts it together and he's like, wait, speak friend and enter. And so he says, Gandalf, what's the Dwarfish word for friend? And Gandalf is like, oh, yeah, that's what it is. And they open the door and it's great. So they go in. Gimli, he's like talking to Legolas. The dwarves and the elves are not meant to be friends. Like, they have this race-wide, like, grudge against each other. But Gimli and Legolas are, like, breaking that and becoming friends
The
this whole
best
time.
bromance.
They're so cute. So, anyway, Gimli's, like, talking to Legolas and he's like, and wait till you see the hospitality of dwarves, and these are my kin, and I can't wait to show you the wonders of Moria. No one, for some reason, realized that Moria had been taken over by orcs and trolls, and all of the dwarves had been slaughtered. And so they walk in, and, like, there's all these dead dwarf carcasses just, like, on the stairway. And Gimli's like, oh my god, what happened here? And I don't know why Gandalf didn't know about this. Like, why did no one in the world know about this? It seems like they should have.
Yeah, that's a valid question. I don't have an answer.
I don't know either. But anyway, so Gandalf is like, well, let's pray that we can sneak through here and not be seen. Well, that didn't work because Gimli caught sight of this, like, memorial for, I think it was for Balin, who was, like, the ruler of Moria. And he was actually in The Hobbit as well, but again, different story. So Gimli, he wants to go and, like, pay his respects at the gravesite. While they're in there, there's, like, this huge, like, well sort of system with a book and a chain sitting on top of it, and stupid Pippin. Pippin's the dumbest of the hobbits. And poor Pippin, he, like, knocks this large chain down the well, and it makes this very, very loud noise, and they were trying to be so quiet. Well, it didn't work, and now everything that was below them has awakened and is coming up to fight them. And there's just, like, hordes of orcs and goblins and trolls and everything just, like, coming towards them. And they're in this little room, and Aragorn and Legolas have their bows, and they're, like, doing their best to fight these guys off.
Yep.
And they have to, like, make a run through the Great Hall, and they finally make it to, like, this staircase that's crumbling apart, and it's, like, so precarious. They have, like, they throw the hobbits over the staircase to the next landing. That's, like, there's eons of feet below them before you hit the ground. And then the staircase is, like, wobbling back and forth. So Aragorn and Frodo are the last ones over there, and, like, it's rocking back and forth, and they have to, like, use their body weight to lean it forward so they can jump, and right after they do, it, like, crumbles to the ground. Well, suddenly the orcs and the goblins are the least of their problems because this huge demon monster comes up from the depths.
Balrog.
Yeah, and that's the thing that Gandalf had been scared of. That, like, the dwarfs previously, they dug too deep and woken this thing up, basically. And so they're running across this huge bridge, and it's, like, trying to whip them with this lightning bolt whip, essentially. And Gandalf does his famous, "You shall not pass!" And he tries to hold it off so that everyone else can get across. And it looks like it gets, like, sunk back down into the deep. But as it's falling, it, like, shoots its whip back up, which wraps around Gandalf's leg and pulls him down in with it.
Fly, you fools.
And so, yes, fly, you fools. And Frodo's like, no. But everyone else makes it out safe, but without Gandalf. And it's kind of here where Frodo makes the decision of, I don't want to, like, hurt anyone else. Like, we've lost Gandalf. Who else are we going to lose?
Right.
This is not okay.
Yeah.
So he already, like, starts walking down the hill on his own, and Aragorn's like, no, Frodo, you must come back. From there, they make it to Mirkwood, I believe. Is it Mirkwood? Is that where they meet Galadriel?
I think so.
Ugh. It's another band of elves, essentially, in another deep forest kingdom. So Galadriel is, like, this ancient elf lady. She is very, very powerful. More powerful than Lord Elrond was. She is also real good friends with Gandalf. They have some history together, I think. But she's a good guy.
Yeah. Also played by Kate Blanchett.
Yes.
My second love.
So she like tells them to pay their respects for Gandalf, and the elves are singing like this memorial at night for him. And she kind of walks by Frodo at one point, it's like, come with me to the well. And they go like to this place where there's this magical water that will like show Frodo his future, basically. Well, it doesn't show him his future. It shows him the Eye of Sauron, and it like
it's terrifying.
flips his soul. Yeah. And she's like, I know what you've seen. And he's like, take the ring, just take it from me. And she has like this vision of herself of like, what if I did take the ring? Then it would not be the Dark Lord, it would be the Dark Mistress of the land, and I would be all powerful. And then she's like, no, I can't do it. I can't let myself be that way. It must be you, Frodo. And so further confirmation that only Frodo the Small can do it. And so they all continue on. This is where they're given the boats, I believe, to get down the river.
Yep. Okay.
And you see more orcs going along. So they're parked on the side of the river. The orcs are coming up, and actually Frodo at this point, he's trying to sneak away. Boromir comes after him and is like trying to steal the ring from him at this point.
Yeah.
In a panic, Frodo puts the ring on because he has to get away from Boromir.
Yep.
And then like because of that, Boromir like snaps out of it essentially, because I guess the ring like it got what it wanted. It got someone to use it basically.
Yeah.
And so it no longer had its grip on Boromir. And he's like, oh my gosh, no, what have I done? Frodo, come back. Come back. I need to help you. But the orcs and everyone is like alerted to where Frodo is. He's climbing higher and higher up the mountain, and no one really knows where he is, but the orcs are attacking. It's this huge battle scene, and Frodo manages to get away on his own. Sam jumps in the river after him. Like, he takes another one of the boats and Sam jumps in, but Sam can't swim.
Yeah.
So Frodo saves Sam, and that's how Sam gets to go along with Frodo, and they make it to the other side of the river and get up onto land. Everyone else is able to fight off the orcs, except Boromir. In his effort to, like, redeem himself, he, like, takes a bunch of arrows so that Frodo and the other hobbits are not shot. And unfortunately, he does die from all of that.
Rip Sean Bean.
I know. He had a very small part to play in all of this. But like at the end, he talks to Aragorn, and it's like this really tender moment. And he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I see the error in my ways. And Aragorn, he like forgives him and like says, don't worry, it's not your fault. And we'll make sure that Frodo succeeds for you. And like, it's really sweet. And they did such a good job acting it out. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It must have been, I don't know how many takes they did it in. I can't even imagine. But they did it perfectly.
Yeah.
In whatever final take this was. And then they sent him off, like, over the waterfall as a nice burial. Legolas is like, let's go after the hobbits. They must have just been over the other side of the river. We can find them still. And Aragorn realizes what Frodo is doing. And he's like, no, we can't keep going after him.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, while all this was happening, the orcs took the other hobbits, Pippin and Merry.
No.
Because they didn't realize which hobbit had the ring. They were just told, get the little guy.
Yep.
So they took Pippin and Merry away, still alive. And Aragorn, he reasons with Gimli and Legolas, and he's like, we still can fight, and there are 2 hobbits that need our help over here. So let's go save them. And so onward they go on their big quest to save Pippin and Merry, and Sam and Frodo are making their way as much as they can.
Making their way
Mordor.
downtown.
And that's how it ends. Yay!
Yay! First movie.
So, look forward to another movie recap next week for our following bit of the series, The Two Towers. Sorry, that was long.
No, it's okay. They're long movies and books, but they are what created all of the nerdy things that I enjoy in my life. And without Tolkien and his madness, I would not have so many things.
All right. Well, that's enough of Lord of the Rings for this time. Did you bring me a quote?
I did bring you a quote. I'm pulling it up on my phone right now.
Okay.
All right. The quote is, anything from the floor of a building to an entire city, but it has to be complicated enough for us to hide from the projections.
Okay. I might have an idea of where that's from.
Okay.
Maybe.
Cool. All right. If you know where the quote's from, feel free to message us on the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, if it still exists. We have YouTube.
I think we've said that for like the past 2 months.
I've just been watching it
here.
explode. Like, it just spirals out of control, and then it's fine for a little bit, and then continues to spiral out of control. We have most of our videos up on YouTube. We have a TikTok at Vampire Sheep. Sheep is spelled with 3s. I'm working on getting a Tumblr to go live. Old school 90s kid Tumblrs. And you can find us using the hashtag Nerd of the Week, or at Nerd of the Week, or hashtag NOTWP. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, we would.
Right. So I have brought a video game that, while I was learning about it, also discovered has a Netflix adaptation that apparently I have been living under a rock, or not, HBO, and didn't know this was happening until like it just happened to be on the HBO website or like streaming service, and I'm like, cool. But I'm bringing the video game The Last of Us.
I've heard of this, and I've also heard of the show.
It's fun. It's a zombie type of flick. It came out in 2013, developed by Naughty Dog. I think it was originally for the PS3 and PS3 or PS4. I think I played it on the PS4 because I didn't play it right away when it came out. But it's the story of Joel, who is a smuggler who is tasked with escorting a teenage girl, Ellie, across the post-apocalyptic United States. And I think I played the entire game crouching, hiding from the zombies. So this was
Wait, you mean your character?
Yeah. So you play as Joel.
Okay.
He's the guy that's escorting the girl across the United States, and you have to hide from the various, I think they call them like clickers, and using every other word but the word zombie, like a lot of these stories like to do. But they're functionally zombies, and they you have to go through like different puzzles and fight through not just zombies but like bandits and raiders and all that stuff, protecting Ellie. And it's a very spooky game, and I don't usually play the spooky genre, but The Last of Us had such great ratings and a really amazing story that I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And it was before I knew Let's Plays existed, and I personally didn't have to go through the spooky. I could just watch someone else do it and then hide accordingly. So
Hide accordingly.
Where you just kind of have the like blanket over your head when the spooky happens, and then you're like, all right, cool. The YouTuber I'm watching has got through that part. I would die. But neither here nor there. It was one of the first horror video games that I played all the way through. The twist on this one is that there is a brain-altering pandemic that has infected about 60% of the world's population, and I think it's originally takes place in like 2000 years are beyond me, but the game itself, when you start playing, is 2033, and then it was like 20 years ago was when the pandemic started, which a little bit on the nose, but it's okay. And this one is fungal based, so the
gross.
Yeah, and the Netflix, I watched the first episode of the not Netflix, HBO show, and they have it be a little bit more in-depth explanation, and I don't remember if it's in the game that they explain it more, but it was like humans can develop vaccines for viruses and even starting to develop vaccines for bacteria, but the thing that's probably going to kill us is fungus. And I think a lot of this game was inspired by this one fungus that takes over ants and basically corrupts their brains and makes them climb to like the top of a tree and just eats them away and then explodes so that its spores can go onto a bunch of other ants. So it basically forces this like zombie-like behavior in ants. And so I think Naughty Dog and the writers was like, what if that, but the world? And so the first opening cinematic is always the like hardest to get through because it's like how everything starts. And we start with, and right as things are happening. So there's like news and things about outbreaks in like India and China and people getting more and more like locked down and things happening overseas. And it's just kind of in the background. And then there's Joel and his daughter Sarah are just kind of hanging out. Joel had come back late from work. Sarah really quickly establishes herself to be like a really awesome daughter who understands that he's a single dad. She had gotten him a watch, or had fixed his, I think it was fixed his watch for his birthday, because I believe it was his birthday that day. And then kind of the next scene cuts to I think it's like the neighbor is infected and like pounding on the door, and then they realize that there's this infection spreading, and Joel's brother Tommy comes over and like saves them from their neighbor, throws them in the truck, and then they start to drive away as they're like slowly figuring out what's happening, and they're hearing some news about like stay inside, don't go outside. And there's like military coming into the city that they're in. I don't remember what city they started in, but I don't think it matters. I think it's California side, but they have the government really doesn't know how to handle it. And so basically what they had figured out is if you get bit, you turn into a creature. So they were basically just like...
A creature,
a zombie.
Sorry.
Basically they were just wiping out populations that they thought were infected, because also the way it's spreading is through spores. So it wasn't just the bite. So anything that had a huge spore amount, or spore count or whatever, they were like, just level these areas. So Tommy, Joel, and Sarah are trying to get out of there. And unfortunately, the truck that they were driving, it flips, gets into an accident. They're trying to get away, and a military soldier is told to take the shot on them because Sarah's ankle gets injured, and they have no way of knowing if she was actually bit or if she was just, wounded. And so he takes the shot as Tommy's trying to shoot the soldier to keep him from attacking Joel and Ellie, or Sarah. And Sarah dies because she gets a shot. And then that's the cold open for The Last of Us. And then 20 years go by, and we don't really know how, or it's not really shown or delved into how humans dealt with it for the first 20 years, but now there's like human outposts throughout the United States and presumably the world where they are kind of run militaristic style, and it just kind of depends on where you ended up and where you were at the time of this outbreak, and each different place is kind of run a little bit differently. And Joel is in an area that's kind of run in more of like a militaristic, like totalitarianism style situation. And so he, on the surface, is looking like he is like a good worker. He shows up for a bunch of shifts. He does a lot of stuff, but he actually serves as a smuggler with his friend, and I believe his girlfriend-ish partner, Tess, where they sneak things out of the city to survivors who don't want to be in the city because of the totalitarianism, but they have more supplies in the city than they do outside of it. So Joel is a pretty well-known smuggler, and while they're figuring out how to get a truck. So a lot of it was them trying to build up and figure out what to do. And Joel's brother, Tommy, who survives the whole beginning of the incident, has gone missing. And so Joel wants to steal a truck and then just go like cowboy ranger through the United States to find his brother. They get messed up with the Fireflies. And now the Fireflies are like a resistance band who are upset with what's left of leadership not doing anything and not finding a cure. And a lot of their drive is to supposedly free people from this situation and try to get things back to normal, or as close to normal with zombies as you can be. And so they are actively being wiped out. But so it's not good to be a Firefly. You are constantly targeted. And if you're even associated with a Firefly, like they just execute you on sight. So it's kind of horrible. And as they are trying to get out, they encounter Marlene, who's the head of the Fireflies in this area. And she says that she will double the payment of all the smuggling, supply them with guns and some other stuff to help them get out to go look for Tommy if they take a girl with them. And immediately it's not told why this girl, why this specific person, anything like that. They're just like, Ellie is important and she needs to go somewhere. So Joel and Tess hesitantly agree. There's kind of like a, hey, do this. Also, the cops are about to show up. So like, you really don't have a choice. You got to grab her and go, take the stuff and go. And then you sneak out of the city with Ellie. You are pursued by I think they're called, I don't remember what they call the police force. I'm just going to keep calling it the police force. But they are supposed to get to, I think it's Washington, D.C. So they're in California. They need to get her to the other side of the country. And you are being followed very quickly because it's just quickly learned that Ellie is immune to the fungal infection. She had, right before the start of this bit of the game, she had been bit about 2 weeks prior, and her infection never spread. It actually looks like it's healing. There's like a wound on her arm that's like healing very, very well. And so the Fireflies want to get Ellie to a place where they have better medical supplies so that they can figure out how to make a vaccine or a cure from her blood. And so that's functionally the premise of the thing. The part that drives me up a wall with the Fireflies, and I will never not rampage about it, is that the Fireflies believed that they had to like straight up murder Ellie to get like all of the samples that they needed to develop a vaccine, which one, not really viable because like that's not going to do enough for the entire population. How are you going to like propagate that? And two, why wouldn't you start with just like blood samples and then keep and not murder a child? But it's fine. Everything's fine.
Apparently it's more fun to murder the child.
Right. Hollywood science with how vaccines are made, where you just look at it under a microscope and you suddenly know how to make a vaccine. But it's okay.
It's like, what's that one with Will Smith? I Am Legend.
Yep. Sometimes I know too much, and then it makes me like nitpick specific areas. But basically, the rest of the game is them traveling through different situations and getting away from the government. Because I believe what's left of the government also knows that Ellie is immune. So she is like high profile. And I don't know that they want it getting out that someone is immune, because I think that it would cause uproar if they didn't do anything with her or try to be like, hey, there is a way to get immunity. We just don't know how. And then like proving their inadequacy. And the game is beautiful. And even now the graphics are still really stunning. I believe it's been remastered a couple of times. And
wait, when did you say it was made?
2013.
Oh.
And then I know it got a remaster. And you can play it now on the PS5, but I think it's the PS4 download. But very, very beautiful game. Very terrifying. They have these things called clickers that, so like, it's kind of like the face hugger from Alien, where like the whole head is just kind of like fungal spores. Another piece of media that has evil fungus from me. This is me.
You brought a lot of fungus recently.
I've brought a lot of fungus recently. But they like, there's like the classic standard zombie that's just kind of slow and dumb. And then there's the clickers that make like an actual clicking sound, and they like echolocate you. And I hate them with with a passion. There's a part in the game where you have to like turn power back on to a building, and you have to go down into the basement, and there's a generator that you have to start up, and I knew the second I hit that generator that all of the clickers were gonna come out of the frickin' woodwork and kill me, and it absolutely happened like 15 times, and every time I screamed. It was terrible. And I was like, I'm never gonna defeat this game because of this specific moment. A lot of the game focuses on Ellie and Joel's relationship, and Joel dealing with the death of his daughter, and then Ellie kind of becoming his daughter, which is really cute and a very well done story. And then when Joel realizes what the Fireflies are going to do, so he's eventually successful after you go through a bunch of different areas. There's a cute scene with some giraffes who had like escaped from the zoo, and so like there's like a herd of giraffes, I think in New York or something, and they're like petting giraffes in a skyscraper, watching them kind of go through. And it's very reminiscent of like the Jurassic Park Bronchiosaurus scene, with the Bronchiosauruses up in the tree being pet. And they have like these really, really great bonding moments. They do, I believe, eventually find Tommy, because that was part of the goal too, was trying to find Tommy. He has, I believe he was part of the Fireflies for a hot second, but more like acting as a smuggler. And then he ended up in a compound that was way better maintenance, run by better people. And it was like an actual community of people who were just trying to keep each other alive. So Tommy is saying, Joel, you need to stay here with Ellie. Ellie wants to keep going to go to the Fireflies base because I don't know if she knows that they want to kill her, but she wants to try to help and keep people from dying. And then they end up there. And then when Joel realizes as he's handing Ellie off to Marlene that what's going to happen to Ellie, Joel basically snaps and breaks into the compound and just shoots every doctor working on her. Like they've been like literally induced her to anesthesia. They're about to make a cut, and Joel like shows up guns blazing and just takes out everybody. And then kidnaps Ellie and puts her in the back of a truck and drives her away. And Ellie wakes up.
Does he wake her up?
So yeah, Ellie wakes up from anesthesia in the back of the truck, and he basically lies to her. He doesn't tell her, hey, I just couldn't let you die. He instead like makes up some like half truth about they ran a couple of your blood tests and they discovered that your immunity doesn't really mean anything, so you can't help make a cure, so I'm going to take you back to Tommy's compound, and doesn't tell him that he basically like wiped out like half the Fireflies for her. And that's kind of how the game ends, with the plan for The Last of Us Part 2, where it picks up from Ellie's perspective, and then there's a little bit of a revenge quest and forgiveness on that story. But the whole story, the dealing with trauma, dealing with bandits and the totalitarianism government are all like really high important themes throughout the game, and it's beautiful and I love it. And the HBO adaptation has been doing it just perfection. It's wonderful.
Oh, good.
The first episode, my husband was just watching me geek out over it. I don't think he was actually watching the show, because the whole first episode was basically shot for shot to the video game. It was so spot on, and the characters are doing so well for them. I've only watched the first one. I think there's 3 episodes out right now, with the plan, I assume, to go through the whole series. And I'm sure there'll be some changes and stuff, because obviously like video games don't quite translate to TV and movies, but this is one of the best movie or TV adaptations of a game I've ever seen.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that they're not ruining it.
Yeah, I think on the whole, the fan base is very impressed and happy with it. I was a little bit hesitant because every time they're like, yeah, we're going to turn this into a live action something or other, you're like, I'm sure you are, and I'm going to hate it. Fun game. I love the premise of it being from fungus. Apparently, evil fungus is a theme that I have picked up in my life.
First it was space cowboys, now it's evil fungus.
Stay tuned to find out what the next hyperfixation that I have is.
It's all right. You're allowed to hyperfixate.
I think I just like the same stories over and over because this one also has like cowboy themes of like riding through the United States, avoiding the law, fighting bandits, fighting things. Like, I feel like
lots of traveling, just like Lord of the Rings.
Lots of traveling, just like Lord of the Rings.
This is kind of like Lord of the Rings too. They're avoiding the evil group. There's a very precious cargo that they have to get to a certain place.
Yeah, actually. Yeah, you're spot on.
I think most stories are kind of like that, though.
All stories are the same stories. I find character-driven stories way more interesting than just like action-based stories, and I think that's true of like Lord of the Rings and this one and most of the genre that I've like hyperfixated and like gotten really attached to are the ones that like deep dive into characters and like why they do what they do and their motivations and all those things. Psychology is fascinating.
Is that your alternate career path, psychologist?
Probably would have been.
Cool. Well, thanks for bringing this.
Yeah. Okay, would you like the quote again?
Yes, please.
Okay. Anything from the floor of a building to an entire city, but it has to be complicated enough for us to hide from the projections.
Is it from Inception?
It is from Inception.
Oh my gosh. That's
nice.
Amazing. I've seen that movie once on a flight. I'm surprised I got that.
Heck yeah. Nice. Good job. I'm impressed.
Thank you so much. That's a good one. And remember, listener, if you knew where it was from, tweet at us in celebration.
Yeah, please do. We'd love to hear from you. Generator, would you like to let us know what our next word is, please?
The next word is sentient.
All right.
Sentient.
I feel like...
Listener, what will I come up with?
What will we think of next? I feel like robots are going to be involved with this next one. Right, Generator?
I already told you what mine is going to be, and it don't it doesn't have robots in it.
Well, mine's probably going to have robots. I feel like the Generator's offended. Because she's probably a sentient robot, right? It's fine.
Generator, do you want to bring something for next time?
Maybe.
Fair enough. All right. Thanks for making it to the end of the episode. We are glad you're here.
It's a longer-ish one today.
It's a longer-ish one today, so if you made it to the end of the episode, we appreciate it. And comment on our video. The Last of Us is just the Lord of the Rings, and we'll know you listened to the whole thing.
You don't even have to comment that. Just comment anything.
Yeah, I mean,
leave
true.
us comments. Like the video, share the video. Tell people
share with a friend
anywhere at the bus stop. Tell your Uber driver about it.
Be like, have you heard this podcast? They're kind of funny.
Make your Uber driver listen to what you want to listen to, which is this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how Uber works. Are you allowed to pick the music? I don't use Uber.
I don't have a good answer for that question.
Okay, cool. Well,
okay, cool. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for the Generator
for stopping by.
Thanks for stopping by. I will never know how to end these episodes. As always, I've been Stephanie.
And I've been Allison.
And remember, this isn't a pyramid scheme. Bye.
Goodbye.